All right, we're going to look at 5.1 PowerPoint here. And we are starting the 5th chapter, which is called Cash Control or Cash Control Activities. And so obviously everything that we're going to talk about in this unit has to do with cash. And usually when we talk about checking accounts and cash kind of go hand in hand. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to look at recording a deposit on a check stub. We are going to endorse checks using a blank, special, and restrictive endorsements, and we're going to prepare a check stub. All right, so typically when we talk about how cash or how businesses use cash, it's a little bit misleading, okay? But when I'm talking about cash in this particular sense, how often do you think a business person pulls out their wallet and gives cash to a vendor? Doesn't happen too often. Okay, this is usually done in the form of checks. Okay, so whenever we deal in business with cash, we're going to write a check in most cases. Now it's even it happens where you have different accounts set up, use a debit card, but it's important still to understand the basics of how cash is shared from one company to another. Okay, obviously, when we talk about sharing or using cash, there are some limitations. There's a chance of recording errors. Okay, if you're using cash, you have to ask for a receipt in a lot of cases. If I use my debit card, at least there's a transaction that is recorded with my bank as well, so I can always look that up. If I use cash and I want to see how much I spent, and 2 weeks ago, I can't go to my bank and see that cash was spent for that particular thing. Okay, I could also lose cash easily. Obviously, I can still lose my debit card or I could lose my checkbook, but a lot of things have to happen before if I just lose cash and somebody walks down the road and sees my cash blowing in the wind, they can easily pick it up and I'm out that amount without any questions asked. So there are some safety measures that we could incur as a company if we decided to go all cash as our business. Now, remember, personal use, it might be a different story, although the same limitations will apply. But there are some major reasons why we want to use checks as opposed to cash with our business. Okay, so a checking account, obviously a check, the definition of a check is a business form ordering a bank to pay cash from a bank account. Okay, so that's what that check does. It's sort of a directive telling our bank to pay whomever we wrote that check to. Okay, and then a checking account. The definition here is a bank account from which payments can be ordered by a depositor. That's our checking account. So just some technical definitions. Do we have anybody here that has a checking account? Yes, several of you do. And has anybody written a check in the last month or for the month of October? Has anybody actually written a check this past month? I'm trying to think when my last check was. I don't even think I wrote a check this last month. But again, while checks are becoming less and less commonplace, the ideas are the same. I'll tell you, I have used my debit card a ton, probably more than I want to spend, or use my debit card, but same idea. How many people have used their debit card this month? Maybe it's a good thing if you haven't. All right, very good. Opening a checking account, you need a signature card and a deposit slip. So here's a deposit slip, or the definition of a deposit slip. This is a bank form that lists the checks, currencies, and coins an account holder is adding to the bank. Okay, this is a deposit slip. So if I give you some cash and you want to deposit it into your account, how would you go about doing that? Well, you got to go to the bank, okay, or you go to the ATM. When you get there, you're going to fill out this form that looks kind of like this. Every bank is a little bit different, but we're going to put the date. We're going to put, in this case, the check. Okay, if I instead of cash, I put check, or they put check. But you could also deposit cash, and how much goes into the bank is going to be totaled up. Now, what else can we do with checks now if we want to deposit those into the bank? Well, how else would you deposit a check, not cash, but a check into the bank? Yeah, you could take a picture of your check and deposit it directly into your account. And that may be done with or without a fee. Sometimes they charge a fee if they want or if you want that money directly put in immediately. Otherwise, you can wait 2 or 3 days before it to clear. We'll talk about canceled checks in a little bit. But yeah, you could do that. Has anybody ever deposited a check by taking a picture? Yeah, it's kind of scary a little bit if you've never done it before. Like, really, all I have to do is take a picture of this check and bam, I've got money in my account. Well, yes, you can do it that way. So it's definitely better and more convenient than going to the bank and standing in line, especially in the middle of a pandemic. Uh, but a lot of time, I think my bank originally, when I started taking pictures, they only let me do 7 free, and then after the 7th one, they wanted to start charging me. So that kind of annoyed me, so I stopped doing it for a while, but I think I'm going to ramp it back up again because I do get checks. In fact, I just got one in the mail from my bank that said it was for $2.53 from Fifth Third. Did anybody else get this? I think they're trying to encourage me to take pictures of these checks. And so all I have to do is take a picture of that check, and they're going to give me free $2.53. I haven't done it yet because I'm like, is there a catch to this? But I guess it's only 253. Why do you think they did 253? Yeah, two fifth third. I don't know. They're probably like they don't want to insult my intelligence by only giving me 53 cents. But anything over $3 they didn't want to do. So 253 from Fifth Third. It seems like a good amount of money, I guess. Whatever. So take a picture of it, deposit it into your account, watch your account to make sure what? You want to make sure that it actually was deposited, right? But especially before you tear up the check or whatever, shred it. Just so that you're making sure that it actually did get into your account. Okay, so that's a depositing cash or a check. Again, you can see here that you can do either currency, coin, checks. What's the difference between currency, coin, and checks? Or what could you deduce by those words there? Currency is dollars, coins are coins, and then checks are checks. Yeah, pretty straightforward, but thought I'd ask. There is a difference. All right, so on the check stub, you're going to actually record this transaction. So this is a little bit different than your personal checking account. In our personal checking accounts, we have what's called our check register, and usually that's in the back of our checkbook. And we just simply write down all of our deposits and we write down all of our withdrawals as they occur in chronological order. For a business, has anybody actually seen business checks before? I should bring these in, but maybe if your mom or dad are sort of in the habit of writing checks for their business, you might see them. But essentially, what they are, you'll see one here in a second. But what we're looking at here is simply the check stub portion, check stub portion of the actual check. So here, number one, if we are just filling out the deposit, look here, you can see that right here in the middle, this is just for filling out the deposit. So if you want to think of this check stub as 3 different sections, the top part would be if I'm writing a check. The bottom part would be if I'm writing a check, but the middle part is if I'm depositing a check. So 3 different sections, and you can do the top and the bottom without filling out the middle, or you can do the middle in this case without filling the top or the bottom. Okay, so they can work independently. So here I'm simply going to write the amount that was brought forward, the balance brought forward. If I have zero, what does that mean? If I have $0 brought forward, what does that mean? It means my balance is zero. What does it mean if my balance was zero? It could mean a couple things, I suppose. One thing, it could mean you're exactly at $0. What else could it mean, you think? Or you just opened your account, right? And that's what I probably think is going on here, but I'm not sure. It doesn't really say. But my balance brought forward was zero, and I deposited how much? $2,000 on this date, January 2nd. Okay, $2,000. Therefore, my new balance or my subtotal is $2,000. Okay. And that is at the same time as my deposit slip that I gave to the bank. So on January 2nd, they sort of reflect one another. So on January 2nd, I deposited this check into my bank account for $2,000 for a total of $2,000. And now I'm saying my balance in my checking account is $2,000. Pretty straightforward. Okay. So, and then I just kind of went through all this. Okay, now we're going to get to this thing called an endorsement. Okay, an endorsement is a signature or stamp on the back of the check transferring ownership. Endorsement. So, what does it mean to endorse something? What does that mean? The word endorsement. What does it mean to endorse something? So, like LeBron James has Nike shoes, I guess, and he endorses Nike products. What does that mean if he endorses Nike products? Yes. Well, you're advertising it. Yep. You're putting your name on it. That's for sure. So what does that mean if you're endorsing something? Yeah, you approve of whatever is going on here. So every pair of Nike LeBron James tennis shoes, LeBron James or LeBron James associates, I guess, have to approve that yes, LeBron James does in fact approve this pair of tennis shoes before he will put his name on it, right? If he got a pair of tennis shoes that he's like, oh, I don't like these, or whatever, that's the wrong color, or I don't like the logo, I don't know. He can say, nope, not these shoes, but yes, these shoes. And then he would endorse those products. And therefore, Nike is also being endorsed. Same idea here is with a check. Okay, if I endorse a check, and I approve of the check, then that essentially means whatever is going on the other side of the check, I give the bank the authority to do whatever it says, right? So to cash the check, to deposit the check, to give it to someone else, those 3 things are sort of the idea of what the endorsement means. And we have the blank endorsement, the special endorsement, and the restrictive endorsement. Okay, the blank endorsement is what happens most of the time. Oops. There we go. And that is an endorsement consisting of the endorser's signature. This is called a blank endorsement. How many people have ever gotten a check from grandma or grandpa for their birthday, for example, and you got to take it to the bank and endorse it? How many people have actually done an endorsement of a check before you either did one of 2 things? How many people have ever endorsed a check? Isaiah has, okay. And then after you endorse it, what 2 things, at least for the blank endorsement, can I do now with that check? I can do what or what? What can I do with that check at the bank? I can cash it or deposit it, right? So that's why you got to sign it, okay? Because you're giving the bank the approval to do one of those two things. A special endorsement indicates a new owner of the check, okay? And it's sometimes called endorse in full. But let's take a look at what goes on in the back of the check here. This one says, pay to the order of Helen Goldsmith from Michael Delgado. So remember, our company is Michael Delgado. Essentially, what's going on here is somebody wrote Michael Delgado a check, but Michael Delgado wants to basically turn that check and those funds over to Helen Goldsmith. Okay, and he can do that by signing the back of it like he has done here, and also writing Helen Goldsmith's name on it. And notice that the line at the top, pay to the order of. Okay, so in other words, pay to Helen Goldsmith, signed Michael Delgado. And now that check is essentially her check. She could take it to the bank and either cash it or deposit it. Okay, that is a special endorsement. Now, one that happens most often in business is what's called a restrictive endorsement. And this is restricting the transfer of the check. And now we can't just cash it, but we can only do what? Yeah, we can only deposit it because it says for deposit only. I can't cash it now. To the account of Delgado Web Services. A lot of times it'll have the account number on there as well. But this one, according to our company, is for deposit only to the account of Delgado Web Services, signed by Michael Delgado. Why do you suppose it's in kind of red font like that? Anybody have an idea? Why do you think it's in red? Yeah, look below. It says, do not write, stamp, or sign below this line. You can, as a business, stamp that on the back and then have somebody sign it. Or sometimes even the stamp has a signature on the back and you don't have to do anything but just stamp it. Why do you think you would stamp it as opposed to write it? Exactly. If you're in a business and you're accepting a lot of checks, at least hopefully that's the idea if you want to be in business for long. You're bringing in a lot of checks, and at the end of the night, the manager goes to the back office and pulls out all the checks from the cash registers and goes through and makes a deposit, one big deposit to the bank, and they just stamp each one. Stamp, stamp, just like the library. Stamp, stamp, one to the next. Okay. It just saves a lot of time than if you had to write this out every time for deposit only to the account of Delgado Web Services, Michael Delgado, right? Takes a little longer. Okay, so here's an example of what a check and check stub look like completely filled out. I can click on there. There we go. So here, this is completely filled out. On the left side, we have the check stub. On the right side, we have a filled out check. So today you're going to be asked to fill out checks and check stubs. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here. Let's start with the check side first. This is a check that you would write. Notice it's from our company, Delgado Web Services. And it's going to Earth or East Side Supplies for supplies in the amount of $165.00. So I put the date, I put to whom I'm paying to, the amount, $165. And then I also have to write that out in words. Why do you suppose I got to write it out in words? Yeah, and if there is an error with the numbering, what is the bank teller going to deposit? The number amount or the written word amount? Yeah, why the written word? Yeah, if you're going to write out 165 and no 100s and up on the line it has 155, chances are if you wrote the word 60 165, okay, that's a lot harder to make a mistake than if you just wrote 155. Or if, let's say, 165 looked a little bit like 185 when you wrote it fast, your 6 looks like an 8, right? Then they're going to go look at the numbers written out in word form. So you should always write your checks clearly when you are at the bank. Okay? You don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to confuse the bank because, quite honestly, the bank will always find these things out if it's in their favor. If the bank made an error in your favor, then it's up to you to catch your error, not the bank. Okay. The bank has people in place to go through and look over all this stuff to make sure that they didn't make a mistake. Okay. If you make a mistake, not in your favor, up the creek, no paddles. Okay, so for supplies, and then it's signed. Okay, then we want to record this on our check stub. All right, so on our check stub, I write the amount of the check, the date, to whom it's sent to, for what, and the balance brought forward. We already did this on the last slide, the $2,000, so that was already filled out. Okay, so if I didn't have a deposit, I wouldn't have to put anything there. But in this case, it's just showing you that the deposit was made of $2,000 on the last slide. Then I would fill out the bottom here, the subtotal, which is $2,000 minus the amount on the check, $165, and that gives me a balance carried forward to the next check of $1,835 no cents. Okay. Then I would tear this check off right on the dotted line, right? I would tear it off right here. I would give this to Eastside Supply, and then I keep my check stub in my business checkbook, and I've got it there forever, essentially. Okay. Questions on completing a check stub and a check? Okay. Lots of steps. But pretty straightforward. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is recording a voided check. What is a voided check? What does it mean if I have a voided check? What happened? What do you think happened there? Wait. Yeah, sometimes I write a check and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to make that purchase after all. Okay. Or let's say I write the check and for my own personal use, I decide, oh, I think I'll use my debit card instead. I can write, and let's say I had it already filled out to whom I was going to send it to, ready to go, and then I decide I didn't want to use my check. Okay, I can write void in big word, VOID, on the check, and that essentially cancels out the check. But we want to keep track of that because we're keeping track of all of our checks. We have check number 23, check number 24, check number 25, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this was check number 24 on our example here, and we decided that we wanted to void it. So in our journal, all we would do would be to write the date, the word void on the account title, C24, and a check mark, and then of course nothing for debit or credit. Okay, so we want to make sure that that happens. We don't just want to not keep track of a voided check. Okay, so record the date, write the word void on the account title, write the check number in the document number column, place a check mark in the post reference column, and then dashes in the debit and credit. Questions about anything from 5-1?